Greetings, gents. I hope yins have been enjoying all the meltdowns, the crying, the seething, the freakouts, as much as I have been since Tuesday. It has been quite enjoyable to watch. If I could figure out how to play music on this without running into potential copyright issues, I would have opened the show with Hose Mad, but sadly I couldn't, so just, if you want, pause the episode here, go play Hose Mad, come back, and you'll have the same vibe. Now, on my last episode, I obviously said I wasn't a big fan of Trump. Anyone who knows me knows I'm not a big fan of Trump. So people may be wondering, why am I enjoying this so much? Well, it's just always makes me happy to see liberals just freak out. And the past few days have been phenomenal for that. But I'm not so much celebrating Trump's victory as I am Kamala's defeat. That's the more important part here, not that Trump wins, that Kamala loses. Although, it is nice that for the second time, Trump has saved America from having a woman as president. The first woman as president. Though it is interesting to see the left really desire a woman president when they can't even define what a woman is. But they want a woman president, whatever a woman is, and they'll just know it when they see it. Though, how do they know we haven't had a female president already? How do you know some past president didn't secretly identify as a woman, but didn't come out because it wasn't, socially acceptable at the time? There's a real possibility that multiple past presidents have been women because they identified as women secretly, and that makes them a woman. I mean, for all we know, Millard Fillmore could be the first gay female president we've ever had. He was just in the closet about it, being trans lesbian. I think that's how that works. By the way, props to anyone who even knows who Millard Fillmore is. Actually, a solid president. He might be in my top 10. But that's neither here nor there. But anyway, to the election itself. It was quite a historic election, and I'm going to obviously go through why. This is only the second time in American history that a president will serve. He's not inaugurated yet. Non-consecutive terms. I'm sure it's been said a lot recently, but the only other time was Grover Cleveland, who served as president from 1885 to 1889, and then 1893 to 1897, broken up by Benjamin Harrison. Though an interesting thing about Cleveland's non-consecutive terms that I didn't know until I was doing some research for this episode. During his initial re-election attempt in 1892, during his second re-election, when he actually got into his second term, there was a third party involved that likely was a large part of the reason he even got into his second term. It was the People's Party, I believe it was called. It was a populist party that got about 10% of the popular vote and just a handful of the electoral votes. And I didn't go into researching the breakdown as to did it draw enough from Benjamin Harrison to get Cleveland elected, but that's something that was in that election that was not involved in 2024. Yeah, you have, the third party candidates, but none of them got more than like 0.5% of the popular vote. And certainly none of them got electoral votes. Another interesting thing about the 1892 election when Cleveland got his second term, he did not win the popular vote. He only got 45.9%. Whereas Trump did win the popular vote, right now sitting at around 50.7%. So this is even a bit more historic because Trump got into his second non-consecutive term without having a third party involved and with still winning the popular vote. A little bit more historical context to the just unique election we just had before I get into the specifics of this election. This is the first consecutive one-term presidents since Ford and Carter in 1974 to 1981, with Trump and Biden back-to-back, each only serving one term. Now Trump is about to serve a second term, but they were just back-to-back, only individual terms. Trump wasn't reelected, Biden wasn't reelected, that's what I mean. And it is the first consecutive one-term administrations not due to death or resignation of a president since, once again, Harrison and Cleveland, 1889 to 1897. And again, also since that time, this is only the second time there were 4 consecutive elections where the party of the sitting president lost. We have the elections from 2016 to 2024. Each time, sitting president lost. Democrat, Republican, Democrat. Sorry, 3 consecutive, not 4 consecutive. And then again, the other time was back during the Cleveland-Harrison back and forth in the late 1800s. And again, that had that third party involvement that kind of screwed things up, possibly. So this is a very unique time period in the country where we've really only seen this once over 130, 40 years ago. So who knows where things go from here. It's a very, very uncharted waters we're going through to see the constant shift and ebb and flow in the country's politics. Now, to actually look at the election itself and Trump's victory, as current results stand, I took these results at 4:12 a.m. on November 8th. It's currently 5:32 a.m. on November 8th. So I doubt anything's changed in between then and when I'm recording. But if anything's changed between my recording and you listening to this, just know that I'm not lying about numbers. It's just, it happened to change over that time, as it's likely going to do. But as of right now, the Electoral College split is 295 votes for Trump and 226 votes for Kamala, with Arizona and Nevada still yet to officially go either way. But right now it's looking like they're both going to end up going towards Trump. And if that holds, Trump will have won all 7 swing states. And it will be the worst Electoral College performance for a Democrat since Michael Dukakis back in 1988. That's just how bad Kamala did this time around. We haven't seen this since the late 80s, at the end of Reagan's 2 terms when George H.W. Bush got elected. Popular vote right now is Trump 50.7 to Kamala's 47.7. The Republicans have taken the Senate with currently 53 seats to the Democrats' 45, with 2 seats still left uncalled, but they're both leaning Democrat, so it's looking like a 53-47 split. And then the House of Representatives right now, there's no majority achieved yet. The Republicans currently have 211 seats to the Democrats' 199. You need 219 right now for a majority in the House. So the Democrats are 20 seats away, whereas the Republicans are only 8 seats away. And I was looking at the map earlier. I didn't, count the districts, but it looks like the Republicans will definitely get enough seats to get the majority. So the 2024 election, clean sweep for the Republicans. They win the White House, they win the Senate, and it looks like they're going to win the House too. So it's a pretty clear rejection of the last 4 years and kind of an endorsement of Trump and the MAGA movement, where now you have all three of the elected positions, White House, Senate, House, go to the Republicans. And the Supreme Court's already Republican or conservative bent majority right now. So the Republicans will have all three branches of government for at least the next 2 years. I've heard a lot of political pundits refer to the election as a mandate for Trump and Republicans, that the American people have given them a mandate to do what they want, what they think is right, what they think is good, and let the American people are putting their trust in Trump and the Republicans as a complete and utter turn away from, the Biden administration and the Democrats having run the country for the past 4 years. Although the Republicans did have the House for the last 2 years, the Democrats had the Senate for all four and the House for the first two, but still, for the most part, the Democrats have been in control outside of the Supreme Court for the past 4 years, and the American people seem to very clearly have said, no, we're done with that, we're going a new way. It is a very clear rejection of the state and the state-run media. I've seen a lot of people saying that a big part of why they voted for Trump is they don't like the media. They don't like how they've been lying about Trump. They'll have the Liz Cheney comments where they claimed Trump wanted her to be executed by a firing squad, when really he was saying she should fight the wars that she's constantly pushing. It was just complete and total spin and lie by the media. And you've had the media, constantly attacking and belittling Trump and Trump supporters, obviously since 2015, 2016, but a lot recently too, especially in the election cycle, where they just really went hard on him, and a lot of people were just pissed off and said, no, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. You think we're so evil? Fuck you. I'm voting Trump in. I know people who didn't vote Trump before, who decided to vote Trump in large part because of that. That was part of my motivating factor when I eventually ended up voting for Trump. And if you look at where the country's been going for the past 4 years, it's understandable. People have not enjoyed the past 4 years, and I really can't imagine how anyone could have. You've had the severe price inflation, monetary inflation. Monetary inflation drives price inflation, by the way. It's not corporate greed. It's the inflation of the monetary supply. That is inflation. And one little note that I feel like a lot of Trump supporters won't like. Trump did start the inflation under COVID. He shut down the economy, which helped drive money towards the corporations that could function under the shutdowns. And he printed a lot of new money, started a lot of monetary inflation. But, Biden certainly continued that. He certainly didn't do anything to make it better. So at best, inflation is a wash, and you tend to have inflation be associated with the president it's most developed under. And so even though, like I said, Trump started the monetary inflation, it gets tied a lot to Biden. And the worst part is that while all the inflation was going on, the media was sitting there and saying, no, there's no inflation, or, oh, it's getting better, or it's not that bad. And people were like, that's bullshit. You're outright lying to us. I don't care what you talking heads say. I'm seeing my bills go up every month. So you're telling me it's getting better? Fuck you. I'm voting for Trump then. Then you have to deal with the immigration problem, where the number of illegal immigrants in the country has skyrocketed at insane levels, where you now have millions upon millions of new illegal immigrants in the country that all came under the Biden-Harris regime, where the border czar, Kamala Harris, didn't do shit about it. You know, you had these Venezuelan gangs taking over only a few apartment complexes in Colorado, which, another point against the media where they're so fucking ridiculous. Oh yeah, these foreign criminal gangs only took over a few apartment complexes in the United States. Now, fuck off, whoever that bitch was. Like, it's ridiculous. Anything where a criminal gang is taking over anything in the United States should have been met immediately with deadly force from the government. You know, I don't like police, but that's one of the few times when it makes sense for police to get involved. But instead, the government basically said, no, you can't do anything. Good old Democrats in Colorado. And then they went and voted Kamala anyway, so wonderful work there. You get all these stories around the country of immigrants getting free housing, free food, credit cards, EBT cards with thousands of dollars on them. Meanwhile, with all that inflation, Americans are struggling to get to their next paycheck. But the government's giving these illegals thousands of dollars each. Free housing. When housing prices are skyrocketed, people aren't even able to afford their housing. And so people are like, no, fuck you. I'm voting Trump. Oh, and then the whole, they're eating dogs and cats in Springfield, Ohio, which did happen. There's videos of the police arresting a woman who just killed and ate someone's pet cat. There's videos of the town hall meetings where the residents are complaining about their pets going missing. There's police reports of immigrants killing wildlife at parks and, eating them. Although, I will give it to the Haitians. When they're in Haiti, they're eating people. But here, they're only eating pets. So, slight upgrade, I suppose. But it's kind of an indicator that we shouldn't be allowing any more Haitians in here. Because they're clearly not good people. Not good for the country. And the media just, mocks Trump for that, even though it's happening. Or they say it's not that big of a problem, or that, well, it's okay, it's good that it happened. And people turn and go against it. And so many people are like, well, you gotta show compassion. These people are fleeing terrible situations. It's just families looking for better lives. Do you watch the videos of illegals crossing? I mean, most of them are like young adult men. This isn't like a mother and a father bringing the little children. These are mostly men, single men, just coming across for whatever reason. Obviously, gang related, a lot of them. Just to get free shit. And basically just an outright invasion. If you have millions of military-age men from another country come into your country, that's kind of an invasion. I feel like that's how you can describe an invasion. It seems like a logical definition to me. But we need to have compassion for an invading force. Or, you know what? You know where my compassion is placed in all of the immigration debate? It's placed with the young teen girls who are getting raped by illegal immigrants. It's placed with the elderly farmer who gets beaten and murdered as illegals break onto his property. It's placed with the young women who are robbed and murdered by illegal immigrants. It's placed with the millions of American families who are struggling to get to their next paycheck, while these illegals are being given free everything. That's where my compassion is. So you want to tell me to have compassion? I have compassion. It's just in the right fucking place. So, yeah, I voted for Donald Trump. And the wars have also been a big issue for people. And this also goes with the money. We're sending a ton of aid to Ukraine and Israel. Billions, tens of billions of dollars, while people are struggling to make ends meet. And people just don't like seeing wars. Thousands of people are dying in both wars. And if we didn't have new wars under Trump, granted he got tricked by the deep state into staying in Syria longer, and it took longer for him to pull out of Afghanistan than I would have liked, but ended up not happening until under Biden. But no new wars under Trump. Granted, the U.S. isn't directly involved in Ukraine or Israel, but we're sending a lot of funding, and you could argue that neither of these wars would have happened when Trump was president. You know, a lot of the Ukraine situation was a constant antagonizing by the United States, like we've been doing since the fall of the Soviet Union. I'm not going to go super in-depth into that. When there's, a lull in the current events, I'll do a Russia-Ukraine episode to go in-depth into that. But we were constantly pressuring Russia, and to the point, backing them into a corner, to the point where they felt like invading Ukraine was the only option they had. And when you know the history of the situation, it kind of was. Go research it. Look up Scott Horton. He can tell you everything about it. If you don't want to wait for whenever I talk about it, Scott Horton knows. And then there's the whole Israel situation that, granted, I don't necessarily think Trump would have prevented it personally. And Trump is the most pro-Israel president we've ever had, so we may even be supporting them more. Although he is pretty clear that he wants the war to end. Whereas Biden's just going endlessly with total support for Israel. So, yeah, it's a pretty clear just rejection of the situation of the last 4 years, where people just don't like what's been going on and want a change. And so that's why Trump's president. That's why the Senate is Republican. That's why the House is about to stick Republican. And another reason that I feel Trump won was the big coalition of people that he built. Basically everyone who didn't like the establishment. You had Tulsi Gabbard, who very clearly doesn't like Kamala Harris. She ripped into her back in the 2020 primaries. It was phenomenal. Performance by her there was a big reason why I started to hate Kamala, was because of the things Tulsi said and brought up. Very justified things to shit on her record as an attorney general. And then, she gets the VP seat. despite being so awful in so many ways. And Tulsi was repeatedly shit on by the Democrats. Hillary called her a Russian agent. Ridiculous. Meanwhile, Biden is very clearly a agent of Ukraine and China. We have the money trails to show that, but that's not a problem. But Tulsi not wanting World War III and nuclear war, that was problematic. So Tulsi said, fuck you, I'm going with Trump. RFK Jr., he went over with Trump after the Democrats just refused to let him primary and constantly shit on him with the media. And when he ran as an independent, they sued to try to keep him off ballots. And then when he endorsed Trump, they sued to keep him on ballots. Pretty much every ballot I saw at various states from pictures online showed RFK Jr. was still on the ballot because, they obviously wanted to hurt Trump, even though RFK Jr. dropped out of the race and endorsed Trump because, again, he's like, fuck you, Democrats. You're being ridiculous. Trump's actually going to be decent to me. And he's got some decent policy, unlike Kamala, who has none. And then, you have like Elon Musk, Joe Rogan. Trump went to the Libertarian Party to actually try to appeal to Libertarian voters, in which he also promised to release Russ Ulbricht on day one, which he fucking better now that he won. I'm going to be really mad. Because Russ does not deserve life in prison for creating a website that people ended up using for naughty things. To give him a life sentence is absolutely ridiculous. It's just a complete wielding of power by the state who says, no, you made it possible to go around our power, to go around our regulations, so we're going to throw you in prison for life. Fucking ridiculous. Ross needs to get out. And I really hope Trump does. But Trump worked with so many different people across the political spectrum because everyone wanted to defeat the deep state, the Democrat establishment, the media, because they just fucking suck. And look at that. They did. And that's why Trump won the White House and the Republicans are going to have control of Congress, which brings up a good point. Trump has no excuse in these next 2 years not to get a lot of things done. He will have complete control of the government, essentially. I've heard people say that when he had it in the first 2 years, from 2017 to 2019, that a lot of those Republicans were still more Mitch McConnell, Mitt Romney type Republicans, where they weren't really with Trump. But now, a lot of these people were more new elections and have come over to Trump. And so now they're going to actually be on his side. So, if that's true, Trump has no excuse not to get a lot done in these next 2 years. To fulfill his promises, to do what he says he's going to do. He's got the mandate from the people. He's got a clear ability and path to do it. So, we better see it happen. Another point about his win this election that I forgot to mention is that he actually won the popular vote this time, which he didn't back in 2016. And that was something that a lot of Democrats harped on him for, that he shouldn't be president because he didn't win the popular vote. He only won the Electoral College, and it had renewed calls for the Electoral College to be abolished. Now, people forget the whole purpose of the Electoral College, and I'm not going to go into the whole reasons why it's important, why it exists, and why the country wouldn't have probably existed without it. Because a lot of the smaller states wouldn't have wanted to join the country without the Electoral College being a thing. But an interesting thing to note about Trump's popular vote win is he's the first Republican to win the popular vote since 2004. And it's only the second time since 1988 that a Republican has won the popular vote. So again, a big change in the politics of the country. Only the second time in 36 years that a Republican has won the popular vote. And the last time it happened was coming off of 9/11, where things were very different. And it was going to be pretty hard for the sitting president, Bush, to not win the popular vote. So, outside of post 9/11 patriotism and loyalty to Bush, this is pretty much the first time a Republican has won the popular vote since 1988. And it's Trump. So it's a very big departure from how things have gone in the United States in recent history. So we'll see where this new direction seemingly takes the country. But there is still something I want to note about the popular vote, especially in relation to the 2016 election. Trump lost the popular vote, but Hillary only got 48.2% of the popular vote. So, compared to Trump's 46.1%. So, while she beat Trump in the popular vote, the majority of voters didn't vote for her. More than 50% of the people did not vote for Hillary Clinton. So you can say she won the popular vote, but she didn't get the majority. The majority of the country did not want her. And so if you're so concerned with democracy, which all these people who harp on the popular vote, especially in relation to 2016, are really into democracy, then you have to support, I think, that only if you get 50% of the vote, 50% plus one of the popular vote, that you would win. So Hillary wouldn't even have won. If you can't get the majority, how can you say you've democratically chosen a winner? No, you've gotten the plurality, but not the majority. And the majority has said no to you. But a further interesting point on the electoral history is 19 separate times there have been 19 elections where whoever won the presidency did not break 50% of the popular vote. And I believe there's been 59 elections in the history of the country, presidential elections. And 19 times, the president did not break that 50% mark to get a majority of the popular vote. 19 times, more than half the country voted against the person who ended up becoming president. That's 32.2% of the time, almost a third. So, by the view of democracy, almost a third of the presidents are kind of invalidated. But that's an important point to show we're not a democracy, we're a republic. Things are different. It isn't just majority rule. But if you're so obsessed with democracy, why not go back and criticize all those elections? Only once of those 19 elections did the opponent of who ended up becoming president break 50% of the popular vote. That was the 1876 election, in which it came down to a very close electoral college vote, for those who know about the 1876. And basically the Democrats and Republicans just made a deal. Say, okay, well, we'll let Rutherford B. Hayes be president if he agrees to end Reconstruction in the South. So even the one time where the president didn't win majority and his opponent did, they kind of just agreed to let him take office anyway. So even that. But it's important to realize that there's a bit more to the whole popular vote story than you're commonly told. Now, it has been going down over time. 10 times in the 19th century, 7 times in the 20th century, and only twice so far in the 21st century has the president not broken 50% of the popular vote. But we're only a quarter of the way through the 21st century. So if the trend continues, could get there 8 times, which would break the 20th century mark. So, like I said, interesting time in the country's politics. But now we get to an interesting question after Trump's won. Do the Democrats let him become president? I mean, they've already tried to kill him. And I've already seen, them mention, I think it was the 25th Amendment, where they're going to try and invoke it against him and say he's unfit to be president, so he can't take office in January. If you're so obsessed with democracy, you have to just let him in because it's what the people have chosen. It doesn't matter if you don't like him. Democracy says he's the president. And it is interesting to see Democrats already try to find ways of how they could block Trump from being president. They don't care about democracy. It's just a buzzword they can use to get a ton of people to get angry on their side. And so I wonder if they try to kill him again. I would not be shocked if there is at least one more assassination attempt between now and January 20th. I won't be surprised if the Democrats tried their own January 6th. Although with how we see with Democrat protests, like back in the summer of 2020, it would probably be it would actually be violent, actually, because January 6th, 2021 was not violent at all. It's up for the, undercover federal agents. But I wouldn't be surprised to see the Dems try something to keep Trump out, something like January 6th, where they actually assault people and set fires, because that's what they do when they don't like something. Like I said, look at the protests of the summer of 2020. I can only imagine what dirty games they're cooking up to try and keep Trump out of the White House. Now, am I saying it's definitely going to happen? No, but it's certainly a possibility. You never know. Biden could resign, let Kamala become the president since she's vice president. They could do some BS to keep her in when Trump should get in, despite all their talk about we have to ensure a peaceful transition of power. Even though they've been calling him Hitler, let's peacefully give power over to Hitler. I mean, for the most part, it's just, I'm sure, bullshit rhetoric, but I'm sure some of them believe it. A lot of their supporters do. So we'll see if they're like, he's too dangerous to get back in office, especially for a second term. So we need to find a way to keep him out. I mean, if January 20th comes and Trump takes the oath of office, then cool. I was wrong. They didn't do anything. I mean, they still might have tried something, but if nothing happens, good. I'll take the L. But just wait and see, because I'm not going to be surprised if they try something over the next 2.5 months. Now, I've talked about why Trump won the election, but it's also just the fact that the DNC, Democratic National Committee, the establishment Democrats, how they lost the election. Now, part of it is that Trump wasn't supposed to be running. Somebody, whoever it was supposed to kill Trump. Whether that be the Democrats, the FBI, whoever. You know, it was supposed to be an easier election than they got, but Trump survived. And they had to go up against him. But the bigger thing is that they just constantly shot themselves in the foot. They wouldn't allow a primary election, even though there were candidates with genuine steam against Biden, especially RFK Jr., which bit them in the ass because he ended up endorsing Trump. So people who liked him, probably some of them at least, went over to Trump. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But so people were pissed off that they didn't want Biden to be their nominee. And so people kind of defected, turned against him, stayed home, said, screw you. If you're not going to let us, have a democratic election to pick the nominee. And then they decided to just coup d'etat Biden, in which he repeatedly said, I'm still running, I'm not dropping out. It would take an act of God for me to drop out. And then just a random letter on just Biden, not the president, just Joseph Biden letterhead, appears on Twitter saying he's not running anymore. And then we don't hear from Biden for a good bit about it. And all of a sudden, Biden's not going to be the nominee. Oh, so we're going to have a primary, right? Or at least, it's close to the convention. We're going to have an open convention, right? So that we can democratically pick the nominee? No. Everything's just being thrown behind Kamala and she's the nominee. That's it. Democrat. The establishment picked Kamala. No one gets a say. The party shilling for democracy just throws democracy out the window twice in one election cycle and just says, no, it's going to be this woman. A very unpopular, very unliked woman that no one wanted back in 2020. But, hey. Now she's the nominee. And they're surprised that people, didn't turn out in the same numbers that did for Biden, supposedly at least. And they just so severely shot themselves in the foot over the course of the election with just how they acted in their picking their nominee. And then she picks Tim Walz of all people. Good lord. It's a horrid buffoon with just ridiculous and evil policies. I mean, look what he did in Minnesota during COVID. He had looked like the streets of Minnesota had been invaded by a foreign army. Guys in military fatigues with rifles, assault rifles, if you're a liberal. Yelling at people to get inside or they'd shoot them. Military Humvees. Just ridiculous attempt by the DNC to just control everything. And then they're surprised when the very people they spit on the whole election cycle just say, no. You had a lot of people still come out because they just really hated Trump, and you were going to get that no matter what, but They just really screwed themselves over in the election cycle. So I mentioned at the start of the show, which is now 45 minutes behind us. And oh, jeez, this one's going over an hour, isn't it? Yeah. But I mentioned at the top of the episode that I'm enjoying the liberal reaction. Because it really is funny to watch them completely freak out as if Hitler himself just got elected. Or the way they're reacting makes you think someone even worse than Hitler got elected, like Stalin or Mao. But one thing I saw a lot of is a lot of liberals were like, how is this possible? You know, everything I saw said that this was an easy win for Kamala, that there was no way she was going to lose. And some of them are starting to realize, but certainly not many, that they had been living in essentially liberal echo chambers, where a lot of them only watch the state-run media, which just toes the party line for the Democrats and the deep state. So of course they just acted like Kamala was going to take it, no problem, because they wanted to convince the people that's what it was going to be. A lot of these liberals mostly exist on like Reddit. That's one of the big ones I saw, with these people freaking out over how this could happen because everything seemed to be pointing towards Kamala. Because Reddit is the biggest liberal echo chamber I've ever seen. I mean, if you say anything to the right of Vladimir Lenin, you're downvoted into oblivion, your comment or your post gets deleted, and you get banned from subreddits or the site as a whole. It is the most ridiculous echo chamber out there. And if you go anywhere on Reddit with the slightest bit of ability for there to be an opinion, you'll see it very easily. And so they're freaking out because the world doesn't exist in their echo chambers. The world is reality, and their echo chambers just clearly try to enforce the propaganda, because if you speak any way against the propaganda, you're completely shut down. So it's kind of funny to watch them freak out because their echo chambers didn't reflect the reality of the world. But you see from these meltdowns and these freakouts the result of all the Democrat fear-mongering. I mean, if you go anywhere near these echo chambers or watch the state media, you see how ridiculous their fear-mongering is. Acting like I said, someone worse than Hitler just got elected. That he's going to execute all LGBT people. That he's going to re-enslave blacks. That he's going to just do such horrible things that these people act like they're completely melting down. Like their lives are over. They're going to suffer greatly because a simple populist who has been very friendly towards minorities and disenfranchised groups his whole life just got elected. But people are freaking out like the worst thing in the world just happened. I mean, I saw so many people threatening suicide over this. I think some people have committed suicide over this already. As insane as that sounds. Just a ton of mental health problems. A huge mental health crisis is already breaking out from this. And no, it's not Trump's fault. It is the fault of the ridiculous Democrat fear-mongering. The people who are pushing this fear-mongering are causing such severe mental health problems amongst, easily impressionable liberals. They're freaking out and panicking. And all this fear mongering comes from a just desire to hold on to power. The Dems were afraid of losing any little bit of their power. The deep state was so concerned about not having complete and total control over the government that they pushed all this fear mongering on these people. And now look at what it's doing. Severe mental health problems, suicide threats, even potentially outright suicides. This isn't on Trump. This fucking blood is on the hands of these Democrats, of the establishment, of the media, who are pushing the fear mongering. Their outright blood is on your own fucking hands. And you should feel like shit if you're one of the people pushing this fear mongering and resulting in this. Yes, I laughed at it, at the breakdowns, because a lot of these people are also ones pushing the fear mongering. And they've bought into it a lot too. And liberals have a lot of times been very hateful towards others for having different views or supporting Trump or Republicans. So yeah, watching those people melt down, it's hilarious. But people are outright killing themselves over it? No, that's fucked up. Although, what I've seen as well is a lot of these liberals turning on people they claim to be so fond of. I've seen a number of things where they're attacking Hispanics because Hispanics voted for Trump in large amounts. I even think maybe Hispanic men have voted in favor of Trump, like more voted for him than Kamala. And they're talking about, I hope you get deported. I hope your whole family gets deported. They're attacking them on racial grounds and so quick to turn against their anti-racism and love of these different groups just because they voted against them. You don't give a shit about these people. You're just using them for your holding on to your power. And when it's gone, you get angry. And so you'll attack them. It's ridiculous. I've seen lots of liberals say that their freedoms are, now in danger. Fucking what freedoms? What freedoms do these people support? I've seen these people do nothing but go against freedom. Oh, well, those aren't real freedoms when, like, speech. No, hate speech isn't freedom, even though they define hate speech so broadly. Almost anything someone says these days counts as hate speech, but yeah. You're not pro-freedom. You are very anti-freedom. You're supporting speech control on information if it's deemed outside what the state decides is the correct information. Which, by the way, the state is the last group who should be deciding what's true or false. But yet they want to control speech. But, they're so concerned about freedoms right now. That's their big issue when they've never given a damn about freedoms in their entire lives. Except for, abortion. The only freedom they really care about is the freedom to commit infanticide. To murder an innocent child, the most innocent form of life. But that's the freedom that's so important to hold on to. And fuck you. It's not freedom to commit murder. You're so worried about people, killing blacks or gays or trans, but yet murder is a sacred tenet of your ideology. But only if it's, I guess, the most innocent form of life on the planet. And I've seen these people, talk about, well, even if like a 12-year-old girl gets raped, she can't get an abortion because of these rules that they're going to inflict. And that's so evil. This is exactly what Trump's going to do. You're going to have all these little girls getting raped, and they're going to have to suffer from carrying the baby. Here's something. The Democrats make rape easier. And it's not really something I've seen people talk about. I mean, who's pushing gun control? We have sexual dimorphism in humans. Women generally are smaller and weaker than men. So if you take any random woman, any random man, generally the woman's going to be smaller and weaker. What's a good way for her to defend herself against the man? Pretty easily. How about a gun? Where if a man tries to rape her, she can just shoot him. For the most part, I'm pretty sure a gun stops people. I'm fairly positive. But the Democrats are pushing gun control constantly because, they want to remove the ability of a woman to protect herself from a rapist. But they're so concerned about rape. And they're so interested in letting all these illegal criminals, many of whom are, like, a lot of these Latin American countries are just sending their criminal populations here because, like, yeah, you deal with them, we're not going to deal with them. And a lot of these people are supporting open borders to let these people in, outright rapists, and then complaining about rape. You're making it easier. You're letting plenty of rapists, and go ahead, bitch about me calling these people rapists. You have a little bit of brain power to know that if I'm saying there's rapists in this group, obviously not every single one of them is a rapist. But you're certainly making it easier for a rapist to get in. Think a little. Like I said earlier about immigration, my sympathy is with girls who are getting raped by illegals. Kamala, as Attorney General, would release rapists. The Democrats are pushing for lighter controls on prisons and prisoners, which, yeah, I'm an anarchist. I kind of with prisons, but I'm not going to complain about the state locking up a rapist. But Democrats want all this prison reform that makes it easier for rapists to get out and rape again. Or let them come into the country. Or, better yet, if a man calls himself a woman, well, then the Democrats are insisting he be allowed into women's restrooms and women's locker rooms. You're telling me that's not making it easier to rape? I mean, come on. If I was a rapist, that's like such an easy route in. Oh no, I identify as a woman. I'm going into that locker room. Oh, now I just stand there and wait for a woman to be alone, and then, boom, rape. But, you're so upset about rape that you make it so easy. You're so concerned with all these policies that make rape easier. But you'll cry about rape. Rightfully, rape's bad, yes. But you're doing everything to make it easier while trying to use it to justify letting complete and utter endless convenience-based murder of babies exist. And that's the freedom you're so concerned about losing. And then you have this hypocrisy where all these celebrities who went to Diddy's parties or Epstein Island are coming out and endorsing Kamala and talking about, abortion as one of their things, and supporting the party who wants to keep abortion as legal as possible. Yeah, I'm not going to take their word when you're concerned about rape. When you have it outright, these rapists and friends of rapists come out and support Kamala. That's ridiculous. And then I've seen people freaking out over Project 2025 still, because they still think that's a thing, Again, it's just what a think tank put out on what they would like Trump to do. And it's not even that bad. I doubt these people have read it. I mean, I haven't read the whole thing, to be granted, but I've seen the summaries, I've seen what is contained in it, and they're acting like it's literally making it illegal to go outside as a woman. No, it just says they don't want you to kill babies. They don't want men in women's sports. That's all it is. Stop freaking out over Project 2025. It's not going to happen. It would be like if the Communist Party of USA came out and said, these are things we would have wanted, we want if Kamala becomes president. And people on the right start freaking out. Kamala's going to do all of these things that the Communist Party wants. No, it's just what someone said they want to happen. It's just ridiculous. And perhaps my favorite is Lee harping about they actually want a convicted felon as president. Convicted on trumped up charges that were elevated to a felony just for this situation, firstly. And a lot of these people who are so upset are really big fans of Obama. A war criminal who has murdered thousands of people, tens of thousands probably, hell, maybe even hundreds of thousands. One of the worst human beings alive right now, who has a Nobel Peace Prize. They love Obama, but, Trump's where they draw the line on, because he's a convicted felon. Yeah, I'd rather have a convicted felon than an outright war criminal. Sorry. Not a hard choice for me. Apparently going the other way, it's not a hard choice for you. That's weird. And it's not even on, anything that's an actual felony. No. They like the hardcore felonies. They, like I said in the last episode, they got mad when Trump executed murderers and rapists. They want people released from prison for assault. But they're so bothered by this felony that Trump was charged with, convicted of, whatever. They're just sick of hearing these people act like they care about morality at all. Who cares if he's a felon? I don't. Especially on that bullshit charge that was suddenly became a felony just for this case? No. Who cares? So, the election's over. What comes next? Well, now it's time to be vigilant against Trump as president. Because yes, I voted for him, but that doesn't mean I'm going to just let him do whatever he wants without criticizing him or trying to, point out when he does something wrong or bad. So that's what comes next. Being a vigilant observer and, when necessary, opponent of President Trump. and to hold him to whatever promises he made that were good. Like I said, releasing Ross Ulbricht. And as I said, he has no excuse not to get the things he said he would get done. But there are plenty of things he said he was going to do that I'm opposed to. So when he tries it, I'll speak out against it. And I hope everyone does. Now, speak out against him for the bad things, not, ending aid to a corrupt oligarchy that shuts down churches and was killing its own people for the better part of a decade before another country started to. Or for rolling back regulations or banning poison. I really hope RFK Jr. does good. Bringing Ron Paul in, if he actually does that, that would be phenomenal. But when he does something bad, I'm going to speak out against it. I encourage everyone to as well. Hold Trump accountable when he does wrong. Hold him accountable when he breaks a promise. Just because your preferred candidate wins doesn't mean you get to take the next 4 years off. Yeah, take the victory lap. Be glad Kamala was defeated. But you got to hold who won accountable for their actions moving forward. And based on the first 4 years, seems like there's going to be a lot to do there, but we'll see. And another quick thing I want to touch on is just the abysmal performance by the Libertarian Party this election. They just laughably bad. As of right now, they sit at a grand total of 586,730 votes. That is the fewest votes they have gotten since 2008. That is the worst percentage of the votes, 0.4%, since 2004. And they came in 5th place behind Trump, Kamala, Jill Stein, and RFK Jr., the guy who dropped out of the race and endorsed someone else. It's their worst placement since the year 2000. This has been an absolutely abysmal and terrible performance by the Libertarian Party, and they deserve it. I mean, I'm sure very few of you even know who Chase Oliver is, but he is a terrible candidate who supports trans children and abortion, who got the nomination through dirty politics working with a former cop. That's not what we want in the Libertarian Party. That's an embarrassment for libertarianism, for anyone who supports freedom. That's why you see Ron Paul on board with Trump and not the Libertarian Party. It's just a shame that, Dave and Tom and the Mises Caucus, Mecox, King of the Mecox, Robbie, none of them could successfully, shift the Libertarian Party from being a laughingstock to something actually respectable. And, the weak, kind of progressive libertarians and soy boy libertarians have just kept the party being so insufferable and hilariously incompetent. How do you come behind a guy who's not even in the race anymore? This is so bad. And specifically on the RFK votes. I said earlier I'd touch on this. About, like I said, he dropped out of the race and endorsed Trump. So how does he still get currently 637,778 votes? I imagine it's a lot of Democrats who wanted to support him in the primaries They wanted him to be their nominee, but could not bring themselves to vote for Trump, even though he endorsed Trump. And so a lot of them voted for RFK Jr. That's where I think all his votes came from. And the fact that there were just that many pissed off Democrats over, I'm sure there were some people who otherwise may have voted Trump, or who knows, even Chase Oliver, but who voted for RFK just because they didn't want to vote Trump. But the fact that there were that many people who still voted RFK Jr. speaks more to the DNC's failure this election cycle. And then you have perennial for funsies, Jill Stein, who actually came in third. So I guess applause to her. I mean, the Libertarian Party has been coming in third the past few years, but they really fucked up here. So now Jill Stein and the Green Party can take third. And still only got 659,000 votes, but yeah, bad third party performances this time around. I mean, back in 2016, the LP alone got over 4% of the popular vote. And now the LP in 2024 got 1/10 of that. Less than. So, GG's. So now we'll see who the Dems can bring out for 2028. I've seen a few names. Gavin Newsom seems to be a popular one, which, please God, no. He is... I mean, who the hell wants to live in California? You want to make the whole country California? Terrible idea. Pete Buttigieg. No, fuck him. If you can't afford gas, just buy an electric car. Bitch. I also don't think America's... If they won't elect a woman, I don't think they'll elect a gay guy. Not going to see me complain. Gretchen Whitmer. That's a name I've heard. She's just terrible. I've heard so many bad things about her from Michigan. But a lot of bad things fits well with what the Democrats are trying. Josh Shapiro, my current governor. Please no. That's all I'm going to say. J.B. Pritzker, governor of Illinois, who looks like the Democrats' version of Chris Christie. Maybe that's what we'll do. 2028. Democrats nominate Pritzker. Republicans nominate Christie. And instead of an election, we just have a sumo wrestling match. I like that idea, actually. Oh, I don't like that possibility that Chris Christie could become president, but it'd be a funny way to decide it. Michelle Obama is a name that gets thrown out every cycle. That, for the love of God, no. Because then you just have one, like that terrible human being Barack back in the White House. It would be a massive influence on policy. So that would suck. As for the Republicans, I mean, there's a chance a Democrat kills Trump in the next 4 years and J.D. Vance becomes president, and he's the sitting president, and he'll just run from that. Vivek Ramaswamy, potential option. I don't mind Vivek. He was my favorite of the current primary people who ran this time around for the Republicans. I've seen Ron DeSantis floated out, which I liked him. I like him as a governor. Way too pro-Israel. It was like what he built his entire primary campaign on. So, Ron, you can stay out of national politics, please. We'll see who rises up over the next 4 years. You know, it could be someone who's a vocal opponent of Trump on the Democrat side, or someone who really fights along with Trump in the Republicans, or if the Republican establishment tries to switch away from Trump. Could be someone who tries to resist Trump over the next 4 years in the Republican Party goes for the nomination, but we'll see. Celebrate Kamala losing. We don't need to worry about 2028. But final thought here. No matter who is president, Christ is king. And Christ will always be king.